again, now if I asked 500 of my clients, who wants an offer, right? 500 hands go up. I want that. I want that. So let's talk about the offer and why everybody wants it. And then what's the real numbers? What's that about? How does that all work? Okay, so the offer, and I had a gentleman who owed the IRS a fair amount of money, and he got a settlement. His dad died and left him a bunch of money. And this happens. A lot of people get money somewhere. They owe the IRS money. Maybe they're in a currently not collectible status, or maybe they're in an installment agreement or some other agreement with the IRS, and then they come into some money, and then they call me and say, "Hey, Attorney Leahy, can we offer them, like half of the money I owe, and I'll give it to them right now. This is the kind of negotiation that works with most creditors, right? So if I'm behind in my payments to my credit card company, and I call them, I say, I know I owe you $10,000. I've got $5,000 cash right now. Would you take it? Maybe they would. There's a good chance. Maybe there'd be some negotiation in between the $10,000 and $5,000, and they would take less, and they would be happy to get it, because the longer that a bill is unpaid, the more unlikely it is that it'll ever be paid. Right. So, and creditors know this, and that's why there's a lot of companies out there that buy these old debts and pay pennies on the dollar. There's that term again, pennies on the dollar. And so a lot of people think that this can happen with the IRS. But here's the real answer. The real answer is an offer and compromise is not when I go to the IRS and say, "Hey, IRS, will you take 10%? Will you take 15%? Will you take half? Will you take?" It's a calculation. They use this form that's here on the screen, Form 656. And this form, it looks at all your income, looks at all your expenses, looks at all your assets, and then does a calculation based on those numbers. Okay, and the calculation first looks at your disposable income, and then you multiply that by a multiplier, and that multiplier can be 12 or 24, depending on what offer you're going to make. If you do a 12-month, then they want 20% down. And then whatever the offer is, they want 20% up front. And if they deny the offer, they keep the 20%, right? They're not giving it back to you because you owe them money, right? So they're not going to give it back to you. And it's going to take the IRS some time. Now with COVID, it may be more than a year. And I've had many cases that even before COVID that were almost a year or over a year before that you get a decision from the IRS. So you don't just call up and say, "Hey, I got some money. Would you take less?" And they say, "Sure, send it in." That's not the way it works, right? There's a calculation. It's a formula. And here's the part of the formula that people don't understand. Okay, that part I could say disposable income multiplied by 12, and that's what I want to settle for. But the part that usually catches people, actually there's two parts, but the first one is what's your assets. So if I have equity in my home, for instance, and it's enough to pay the IRS, well, the IRS will never agree to an offer and compromise, because they could take my home and sell it and get the money out of my home and pay them. Okay, so they're not going to agree. If I have a lot of money in a retirement account, right? Again, they're not going to agree to take less. I have the money to pay them from my retirement account. They can come and take the retirement account, so they will not agree. If I have enough assets to pay them, they will not agree. And the second thing I want to talk about is what the IRS calls doubt to collectability. And what doubt to collectability is just that. You have to prove to the IRS that they're never going to get paid. Right, so there's not going to be an installment agreement. That there's not going to be any other way for them to get paid, and so then they'll consider an offer. But if they believe that you're going to be able to pay them, well, then they won't accept an offer, and they almost never will accept an offer. And this is just the cold hard facts. And so then people say, "Well, why